Maayong! Hi! Oh, shoot! I forgot to set up the chat. Hold on. Let me just copy. And paste. Now let's get a more appropriate music. Because this is too happy and peppy. And yes, we got the glasses. Maayong, maayong. Viva la revolution. This is a story about how I think that phrase has been cursed. This is a story with humble beginnings and a difficult present. But first, before I start, how have you been? It's been well, it hasn't been that long since I saw you. I was there yesterday. But either way, I've got coffee with me. I ate fried chicken. And so I'm feeling good. Doing all right. Literally just got up. Nice. Morning. Feeling rather nice? Nice. I just finished playing some D&D. What coffee you got? I got some salted caramel latte. Been good. Nice. Maayong, it's learning time. I bought some cheap plastic crack. Nice. So you're all warmed up? Yes, yes, yes. What's a more appropriate music track for this? Salted caramel latte. It's pretty good. All right. Here we go. What system do you play? 5e or older? I was playing Fabula Ultima. It's a new system. It's a new JRPG, TTRPG system. So, welcome to the Philippine Revolution. It's a struggle with humble beginnings and a difficult present. To fully understand the Philippine Revolution, we have to first go back to before we were colonized and before we needed a revolution in the first place. As the Philippine national hero says, he who does not know how to look back at where he came from will never get to his destination. That's from Jose Rizal, the national hero of the Philippines. We'll learn more about him later and why he's a national hero. This is in celebration of Philippine Independence Day, which was celebrated on June 14th. Oh, wait, no. June 12th? Oh, no! It's June 12th. It's June 12th. It's June 12th. Cut the tape. Cut the tape. Hold on. Hold on. My bad, my bad. The stream is over. We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post. Good evening, good evening. You know this guy. You've read his books. Nice. But yeah, this is in celebration of Philippine Independence Day, which was originally actually on July 4th. Philippine Independence Day used to be on July 4th, but they changed it. We will learn why later. So, in pre-colonial times, we first had the Negritos. They were the first settlers of the Philippines. It's over on the top right. That's not a slur. That's just that's just what they're called. The Negritos. They're called Negritos because their skin color was black. They had curly hair, vaguely Asian features in the face. But, like, no one really is native to the Philippines. Jeremy, what's the fourth largest island in the Philippines? It's Negros. There's nothing wrong with the Negros. So anyway, they were the first settlers of the Philippines, and they were gradually pushed back. Sorry, that's me drinking my coffee. They were gradually pushed back from the plains all the way to the mountains by the next group of settlers, the Austronesians. Austronesians are a group of people that came from Northeast Asia. Yeah, they're not our ancestors. Most of the Negritos are isolated communities in the mountains. Most Filipinos originate from the Austronesians that you will see on the left and on the bottom right. They're mostly from Taiwan. Yeah, they're mostly from Taiwan, and the evidence of this you can see if you get native people from the northern Philippines, the northernmost of the Philippines, and from the southernmost point of Taiwan, they can still communicate with each other. How this works is, the indigenous Taiwanese. It's called the Ivatan language. So, it's from Batanes, which is the northernmost island in the Philippines. That's why it's called Ivatan. Batanes, Ivatan. And the Ivatan in the Philippines is mixed with Spanish. There's a mix of Ivatan and Spanish in their language. In Taiwan, it's Ivatan mixed with Chinese. So what someone did before, a long time ago, was take people from both ends and help them communicate with each other. Over time, they realized that all they have to do is to just set aside all those loan words that they got, and they were able to communicate. So these Austronesian people populated everywhere from the Philippines to Indonesia to Malaysia to the rest of Southeast Asia, maritime Southeast Asia, I mean. Maritime, by that I mean like in the seas, it's separate from the mainland, which is Vietnam, Thai, and all the rest that's more of a Chinese influence. And in the Philippines, we had the warrior societies of the plains, the plutocracies of the mountains, and the principalities of the rivers. This was in 1000 BC, and the oldest known record to actually survive was called the Boxer Codex. You can see it on the bottom right. It is basically a codex made by the Spaniards of all the different cultures that were present at the time in the Philippines. The thing is, people arrived in the Philippines in these boats called balangays. Don't worry, we just started. These boats called balangays, wherein the community that would come into the country or the land would form around these boats, and these communities would form what we now call barangays, which is the smallest unit. It's like smaller than a town. Even today, we still call those small units of communities barangays because of the boats that they came from. It's like a village, yeah. Isn't that a bit like Viking longboats? Maybe. So, during the time that there were only barangays, there were different maritime polities. Polities by that meaning like political units or I guess not nations, pseudo nations. And allegiances would shift based on the personality of the people that were leading it. You could say it's somewhat like the warring era of China or Japan, where the allegiances weren't to any sort of country or any sort of ideal. It would be based on, oh, I like this person. Oh, I know this person. Oh, I'm relatives with this person. This is who I'm gonna follow. Like many places back then. Oh, it's similar to Viking longboats. Didn't know anything about Vikings. Now I do. The big thing about the Philippines back then was this state or principality called Mai. The Song and Yuan dynasty Chinese documents mentioned Mai. It was an ancient kingdom which was either in Mindoro, a small island, well, a big island in the Philippines, or Laguna, a place in Luzon, the mainland Philippines. We know it was a kingdom. We know that it was a kingdom, not just a polity. Not that the polities are in any way inferior, but we know that it was a kingdom. It was like a kingdom recognized by China, because China only recognized states ruled by a king. Yeah, because it had a king. It was recognized by China as a kingdom. And it was actually one of my favorite topics. This is a personal thing. It was actually one of my favorite topics of history in the Philippines. So there's this game called Nation States, where you can roleplay as a nation on the internet. And I used to roleplay as a Mai, a country. So early history had a lot to do with China. Yeah. Hetalia fans salivating right now. An entire nation? Like some kind of Hetalia? Yeah, kind of like that. Which century is that? It was around the Song and Yuan dynasties where... Song dynasty was from before the Barangay phase, so it's in the 13th century, and right after that was the Yuan dynasty, so around 14th century, 15th century, something around that line. It was either in Mindoro or Laguna. But Either way, it was outgrown by the kingdoms of Namayan, Tondo, and Maynila. Now, Maynila might sound very familiar because it is the kingdom from where Manila came from. It was actually called Maynilad, meaning there is Nilad there. It's a small town somewhere in the Philippines. Yeah, it's a small town in the Philippines. A little teensy tiny town. You thought my Nilad was a Manila water thing? No, yeah. It's after the Nilad plant. My Nilad. My means there is. Nilad is a plant. So there is Nilad in that area. And eventually it became Maynila. And after that, it was Manila. And to the south, this is mostly centered around Luzon, which is the mainland of the Philippines. It's because Manila is where the Spanish bureaucracy chose to settle and make their base, the seat of government. So it's the biggest island. It's where most of this revolution happened. But to the south, there are other there were other places with indigenized Rahanates, and the even more south that was Visayas, which is the middle portion of the Philippines, indigenized Rahanates, and to the south of that was the Islamic sultanates of the southern PH. They were never fully conquered, so they sort of developed in their own way. Strange, right? Were the Southerners another wave of immigrants? No. They were the same peoples that came, but the influence, right? The influence of the Islamic areas were stronger in the bottom parts of the Philippines because I guess it's the proximity. It's mostly because like China and Japan are mostly Buddhist, so they influence the top regions of the Philippines. Then we're close to the Indian sphere of influence in general, so that's where a lot of Buddhism and Indian culture is. And then the Moros, yeah, the Moros, that's what they're called, the people that were the Muslims. They didn't give up. They weren't conquered by the Spanish. Which brings us to the Spanish era. Is it because the Muslims couldn't conquer China? Don't know much about Chinese history. So it starts off with this guy called Ferdinand Magellan, who was supposed to circumnavigate the world. He almost did it. But he was killed by one of the people from the Philippines, one of the leaders from the Philippines. Ferdinand Magellan was trying to convert a bunch of sultanates, Rahanates, but there was one group that didn't want to get converted, and they tried to convert them by force, and they ended up dying for it. Miguel Lopez de Legazpi was the explorer that arrived after and started forming the first European settlements. They were able to subdue Maynila and they established it as a base. He said, the men treat their wives well, which is very sussy because what do you mean by this? Hello, hello. He was the first Spanish governor of the Philippines. But in the Philippines, the men and the women were of equal stature. In some ways, there are articles on this, but you may be able to find that some people talk about the Philippines as a matriarchal society. Because the babaylan, this is in Visayas, the babaylan is the one that makes all the decisions for the barangay, or the not the barangay, for the nation or whatever polity there is. And the babaylan is either a woman or a trans woman. Yes, we had LGBT stuff back then. Congratulations. Happy Pride. We're back to babae and binabae. But even with this supposed superiority in women's rights, there was a little bit of land. There were so much natural disasters and so much rivalries between the polities that what the Spanish did was, like, they made friends with some of these polities, and they were like, hey, that guy, he talked bad about you. And they went to war. And the Spanish would go to the other guy and they're like, man, he said you were ugly. And they would start fighting. So they really did employ a divide and conquer strategy. Also, take care, John. And very easily and very quickly, Manila was established from the remains of Maynila, and it was incorporated into New Spain, based in Mexico. So the Philippines wasn't managed by Spain. It was managed by New Spain. Yeah, Mexico. There were many rebellions from the natives and their local religions, but there were no successful or very organized ones. There's one called Limahong. Limahong? Am I getting it right? Yes, it's Limahong. There was a guy that raided the Philippines from China. It was a Chinese pirate, and he established a base in the northern Philippine Islands, but it was quickly squashed. There was also brief invasions by the Japanese pirates. And what else? Oh yes, there were a lot of native religious revolts. So the original religion that we had is called Anitism. Anitismo. Not animism, but Anitism. It's basically its own mythology, its own belief that there are spirits. Yeah, it's spirit worship. It's like animism. It's very much like animism, but a whole collection of beliefs that were shared between the different native groups of the Philippines. What the Spaniards did originally to convert the Filipinos was get their festivals and replace it with Christianity. So like, hey, you believe in this God? That's actually Saint John. The water god? Nah, that's Saint John. We'll introduce you to him, you know? I know him. So it became something like from the San Juan City in the Philippines is a city known for its festival, the water festival. And that was to honor the water god, but now it's the god, well, no, it's not god, it's the saint of water, Saint John. It's pretty scary. Scary effective, isn't it? Really scary effective. It literally was gaslighting. And this caused a lot of revolts in the Philippines. There were a lot of plagues. There were a lot of famines. And there was one babaylan, which is the spiritual leader. She believed that because you have strayed, the Filipinos, the natives, has strayed from the path of their original gods, they were getting all these famines, they were getting all this sickness, they were getting all these plagues, and caused a revolt. And that was squashed very easily, very quickly. You can't easily turn people back after they're converted. It doesn't work very easily because the Spanish system, the entire government, the entire bureaucracy was closely interlinked with religion. Therefore, their lives were centered around religion. Like even here in the province, right? Everything surrounds the church. In our village, everything surrounds the church. If I want to say I want to go to the city center, I tell the tricycles, I want to go to the city center. They will bring me to the church. And that's where I will shop. So the state and the religion is intertwined so heavily that it's hard to get out of. If you're fighting against the state, you have to fight against the religion. If you want to fight against the religion, you have to fight against the state. So in essence, this comes after maybe a century or two. Even if there is something to go back to, after what? One generation, two generations, all that everyone that will have known is Catholicism. That would be all that they know. You can't go back to something that only your grandfather has experienced. Even more so, the books that we had were burnt. They were destroyed, they were burnt, and the oldest living book that we know is the Doctrina Christiana. The Christian doctrine. But it's not like Spain was all powerful. It's not like Mexico was all powerful. The colony was dependent on this thing called the Manila Galleon Trade. There were ships going to and from Mexico that would trade with the locals and basically act as a center for Asia. So people would go to the Philippines and trade there and then bring it to Mexico. And the Philippines was entirely dependent on the contributions of the galleon trade. But it was never self-sufficient. Without the support of Mexico, without the monetary support, it would collapse. And it did for a brief bit. It did because there was a brief British occupation in Manila. This is the galleon trade. Also, this is Spanish Philippines. There's a galleon trade. Should have let the British capture us. You know why? We would have right-handed driving and better accents than we have now. I don't know about the accent thing. Jonathan. I mean John. We're not close. John Bowring said, "Credit is certainly due to Spain for having bettered the condition of a people, owing in some measure to the frequently discussed peculiar circumstances which protect the interests of the natives." This is because in 1834, Spain changed the way they took care of the Philippines. 19th century Spain had a boom of liberalism and more rational ideas about taking care of their colonies. They restructured the Philippines, created a railway, a bank, a public school, and this resulted in an economic boom. It's less bad. Still bad, but less bad. So, John Bowring considered the Philippines at this point, it was a model for a colony wherein the natives' interests are somewhat taken into account. Just a little teensy tiny bit. Just a little teensy tiny bit taken into account. Hmm. And the overseas Filipinos, the Filipinos who were able to travel abroad, they saw the Latin American revolutions during this time. They studied China, they studied America, they studied the rest of Europe, and they studied how they were governing themselves and they were decolonizing very quickly. This was especially true with the Mexican independence. Whoops. Whoop. The War of Mexican Independence would spark an interest in bettering their own colony or becoming independent on their own. The Mexicans actually wanted to help the Philippines. This brings us to the KKK, which is not what you think. It's not that KKK. In 1872, three priests over on the left, you can see them on the left, they were accused of inciting a revolt, and they were killed and executed. This led to the formation of the KKK, which is a secret society. There were two reasons for the formation of it, which one of them is the propaganda movement, which was a precursor to the KKK. This was a group of European educated Filipinos advocating for representation in the Spanish courts. This was also sort of a secret society. There were it's over on the top right. That's the propaganda movement. They wanted to be part of Spain. They wanted to be a genuine part of Spain. Nope, it wasn't a false flag to settle for less. They really did want to be part of Spain. They wanted to be represented. This was the Ilustrado class, a class of Filipinos that were, how do you say, bourgeois. The 1% of the Indios, yeah, the 1% of the natives, they were the rich. Upper middle class? Yeah, that sounds about right. And Jose Rizal, the national hero of the Philippines, founded a secret society, another one, La Liga Filipina, over on the bottom right, which was for the reform movement. They were trying to advocate secretly for the reforms that they wanted. He wrote two books. One is Noli Me Tangere, Touch Me Not, and El Filibusterismo, The Filibuster, about the wrongdoings of the Spanish colonizers, the Spanish friars, and generally the Spanish government, which spurred the thoughts of revolution in a lot of people in the public. They're good books. I've read them too. So, to not understate the effect of this book, Dr. Jose Rizal was a very well-respected person in the Philippines. He was an author, a poet, a polymath, a revolutionary, a scientist, an ophthalmologist, a novelist, a journalist, and a visual artist. He was very well traveled and very well respected. He was a real Renaissance man. He studied all around Europe and Asia. And everywhere that he went, he got a girlfriend. He had a girlfriend in Japan who was the daughter of a samurai. And basically, the girl was like, Rizal, please leave behind all this revolution, reform talk. I'll take care of you. My family will take care of you. And you don't have to do anything anymore. I'll be there for you and we'll take care of all your needs. And he was like, no. Did he ever get in heat for not committing to a family? Nope. More emotions here. The thing that he gets in heat more was that his one true love is his cousin. It's very weird. But his one true love was his cousin. It was Leonor Rivera, his childhood sweetheart. But all of these fell apart. All these fell apart, and the one standing was the Katipunan, founded by this guy, Andres Bonifacio. What can be purer and greater than the love for the country wherein you were born? No other love can. No other. He was the leader or supremo of the Katipunan. It's called the Kataas-taasan, Kagalang-galangan, Katipunan ng mga anak ng bayan. In English, this means the highest, most respectable society of the sons of the nation. That's a pretty badass name for a fucking secret society, you know? Not only was he educated, but he had a well-paying job, yeah. You know what? I'll show you the Katipunero outfits. Well, these ones are fucking cute. But I don't know why, but like this is cosplay. I cannot believe people sell cosplay of people sell cosplay of the fucking revolutionaries. It's only been 100 years, boys. It's only been 100 years. It's cute. It's cute. I think everyone in the Philippines has had to wear one of these at some point if you did grade school here. I think. I didn't do grade school here, so I didn't experience this. Hmm. Red pants are unfashionable. Oh man. Did you know we got invaded by Japanese Ronin? Yeah, I checked that out. So, I don't know. Before we get to the revolution, I want to talk about the KKK a little more. Katipunero. Katipunero. Enough about the babies. I don't want to see. I don't want to see the babies. I want to see this cool guy. There you go. There you go. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Isn't that some kind of Freemason inductee apparel? Well, Freemasons are very, 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 very closely linked with the Katipunan. So, I wouldn't put it past them to have had influence from the Freemasons. Rizal was a Freemason. A lot of the leaders of the Katipunans were Freemasons. But I remember one of my teachers told me that whenever the Katipunan were about to be discovered, whenever they had a meeting, and the Spaniards would come to their pub or bar or wherever they go, the Katipuneros would hide in the back rooms while the women would start dancing and partying in the pub. Basically, a charisma check. They would do a charisma check, an expert at distraction. I thought that was pretty cool, but eventually they would start. It worked for the most part. Eventually they would start admitting women into the Katipunan as well. But there would be this guy, Manuel Sityar. He discovered the Katipunan first. He was the first to discover the Katipunan, but people didn't believe him. The Spaniards didn't believe him. They just thought, "Oh, that's just a cult." It's just a cult. And he was so how do you say this? He was so salty about that. Yeah, he was so salty about it that he defected to the Philippines. He joined them. "I have served the country of my father with blood. Now I will serve the country of my mother with blood." The first to discover the Katipunan, Manuel Sityar. He eventually became the right-hand man of the leader of the Katipunan eventually. But after that, the Katipunan was discovered by a friar on August 19th of 1896, nearly the turn of the century, and it was discovered by a friar. It was on August 19th. And on August 24th, rediscovered. On August 24th, the revolution was officially started at the cry of Pugadlawin. It was a meeting where they tore this paper called the cedula. The cedula. Yeah, they were forced to start. A cedula is basically a tax certificate. It's a tax certificate for being a citizen of the Spanish colony. So, as a symbolic gesture, they tore it apart and started the revolution with a cry. Very quickly, various parts of Manila were liberated by the revolutionaries, and the revolt spread through 8 different provinces. So, if you see the Philippine flag, there are 8 rays on the sun. These are the 8 original provinces that revolted against the Spaniards. They were the first 8 provinces that revolted against the Spaniards. Jose Rizal, however, was convicted for his association with the revolutionaries, despite never wanting a revolution in the first place. You'd be surprised because in his books, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, he straight up writes a self-insert character. Yeah, he straight up writes a self-insert character who gets betrayed by everyone and like turns into an emo. It's like an Aqua Hoshino from Oshinoko. And he wants to get revenge in the second book. He wrote his own fanfic wherein he was supposed to start a revolution against Spain, but the entire message of the book is don't start a revolution against Spain. Like he says, he doesn't want bloodshed. His entire thing was he doesn't want a revolution. He doesn't want a violent uprising. I bet he feels dumb now. He wanted a revolution through education. He did. They revolted anyway, though. But he was convicted and shot by a troop of Filipinos, not even Spanish troops. The Spanish government got a group of Filipinos and made them shoot their own countryman. So it is a pretty sad way to go. Oh. Oh shit, I accidentally deleted a slide. Alright, that's fine, that's fine. Oh no, it's right here. We'll do it live. So. Over in the KKK side, there was an election, the Tejeros Convention, wherein people elected positions for the new government that was going to manage the Katipunan. They wanted a proper government, not just a secret society. There were 2 factions fighting. 2 governments started fighting each other. And Bonifacio, in the election for the revolutionary government, lost his seat as the Supremo, as the supreme leader, because he lost a lot of battles, a lot of personal battles. He lost it against Aguinaldo, which was a military leader who did win his battles. This is all still under Spanish rule. And so that was a blow to his ego. That was a blow to his pride. He lost his seat as the leader of the Katipunan, even though he was the one who founded it and he was the one who got them that far. He was nominated for various positions, but he lost them to other members of his faction and the other faction, and he was given the director of the interior position, which is kind of shitty. The director of the interior, what is he gonna do in the middle of a revolution? But he was satisfied with that until people questioned his education. People started questioning his education, and he was sort of disqualified for it. So he exercised his power as Supremo, called the elections void, and stormed out of the meeting. The two factions and two governments started fighting each other, and this is where the quotation mark disagreements happened. Do you remember when during the Minecraft stream where Mimi said that her her dad was from Cavite and I said my mom was from Bulacan? Those are the two factions. Those are two factions. And Aguinaldo's men, the new president of the secondary government of the revolution, would end up capturing Bonifacio and executing him. It was a massive blow to morale, but the fighting continued. They executed Bonifacio and a lot of the other men that were part of his faction. This is why a lot of people consider the Caviteños the traitors of the revolution. Some people would say it's a disagreement, and some people would say that it's a traitor. It's traitorous, treachery. But with the help of America, right? With the help of the USA, they finally captured Manila. But when they did capture Manila, the Filipinos were blocked from entering it. And they were like, "What? What's going on?" It turns out that the Treaty of Paris meant that the PH was bought. It was bought by America from Spain, pretended there was a war, pretended there was a battle, and it was just bought by the US from Spain, and the US was also pretending to help the Philippines. But it turns out they were a new colonial master. Ba-bam! Now it's the American era. Hold on. You got deceived and it wasn't by the French. This minion-looking guy said, "The mission of the United States is one of benevolent assimilation, substituting the mild sway of justice and the right for arbitrary rule." William McKinley. So, this was the proclamation of benevolent assimilation. Basically, they wanted to take the Philippines for themselves, and they were doing it because the Spaniards, according to them, were very, how do you say this, unjust. The United States will show them what's actually right and what's justice. And so, in June 2, 1899, war was declared by the First Philippine Republic against the United States. I mean, this is also a picture that goes fucking hard. Look at that. I like the way that guy's holding the gun. It's very cool. It looks like a game cover. But in 1901, they captured Aguinaldo and felled the Republic very easily. Hostilities continued for a decade of up until 1911, including Macario Sakay, who established a separate republic, which was the successor to the First Philippine Republic. But they baited him with amnesty in 1906. They were like, just give up and we'll give you amnesty and pardon. And he was like, yeah, sure. And they killed him. He was executed. It was baited. He said, "We are not bandits or robbers, as the Americans accuse us, but members of the revolutionary force that defended our country. Long live the Philippines," he said. Macario Sakay, the last leader of the resistance against America. The femboy rebel leader. No. He was the last leader against the resistance against America. And after that, there was various rebel groups in the Philippines that were still trying to continue their legacy. But the Philippine Constabulary was created to quell the various rebel groups. And this is how the conquest of the Philippines was presented in the general public in America. It's called The White Man's Burden by Kipling. Basically, this cartoon, it shows Britain carrying its colonies towards civilization, and like just before him is Uncle Sam carrying the Philippines, Cuba, and Hawaii to civilization. Something else. Something else that you will find very interesting if it loads is in 1904. Hold on. In 1904, they had the human zoos in in America. They brought Filipinos from the Philippines, especially the native negritos or igorots, and they put them in a fucking zoo. I can only imagine just how cold they were. Because this is the fucking US and they're wearing nothing but bahags. Yeah. The reason they wore this clothing in the first place was because it was hot in the Philippines. But they were forced to wear these in the US. But there was planned independence for the Philippines after they were taught. There was eventual planned independence after being taught civilization. Barely anyone knows about this war in the US. Don't worry, because barely anyone knows about this war in the Philippines too. See, during this time, America introduced a very comprehensive public education system. And in history books, at least when I was studying, you would see a huge section about the Spanish era, a tiny section about the United States occupation. It's not colonization, it's occupation. And then a big Japanese era again. At least that's how it was in my history books. I don't know if history books have changed, but we'll see. Magandang gabi, bayan. And then Japan took over. Because World War II happened. Japan took the Philippines very shortly after Pearl Harbor. They established a Japanese-sponsored republic as part of Pan-Asianism. So, Japan's propaganda this time was Japan's greatest joy is to give you complete independence by defeating America, yours and our common enemies. It was a puppet government, yes. This time, there was quite a split. It was more about sticking it to the US. It was more about quotation mark liberating Asia. Since this was just coming out of the time. This was just coming out of the time where a lot of Asia was colonized by Western powers. And Japan wanted to be the big daddy who saves all of Asia and unites all of Asia. It was fueled by anti-colonial racism. Is it racism? I don't know. Was it as noble as it sounds? Depends on how you see it. The president of the Second Philippine Republic said, nationalism should not be permitted to degenerate into jingoism or anti-foreignism, or a fanatical rejection of foreign influences that are useful, desirable, and conducive to speedier economic progress, or to the sure preservation of free institutions. This was the ally of Japan, the president of the Second Philippine Republic. And it was not just him. It wasn't just him. Aguinaldo, the leader of the revolution, well, after he killed off Bonifacio, sided with the Japanese Empire. And many of the Katipuneros also supported the Japanese Empire. Of course, a lot of them also didn't, which led to a schism, which was the Hukbalahap. This was a hukbong laban sa mga Hapon. Hukbong, like army against the Japanese. And they kept liberating towns. Hukbong Bayan, yeah. Hukbong Bayan laban sa Hapon. It was pretty cool. Hold on. Hukbalahap women. This is pretty cool. Hold on. If only it worked. This is pretty cool. This is a Hukbalahap woman showing an American officer how she took the heads of the Japanese. And versus the Hukbalahaps are the Makapili. They were part of the they were like the people from the Katipunan and the other people that weren't part of the Katipunan that supported the Japanese army, the Japanese Empire. They were the Makapili. Only a singular K. Happy Independence Day, Termi. Happy Independence Day. Oops. The issue here is there are a lot of stories of both. There's a lot of stories of Japanese atrocities, but very little about the American atrocities. They were completely wiped out from history books here. You don't see them. You only see the Japanese one. History is always written by the victors. Yes. But yeah, the bags on the faces were to hide their identities because they were be seen as traitors for by their community. And I gotta show this guy, Masaharu Honma. You may know, if you're Filipino, you may have heard the term panahon pa yan ni Mahoma, right? Panahon pa yan ni Mahoma. That's referring to Masaharu Honma. Panahon pa yan ni Mahoma means that was done during the time of Mahoma. That was it's been there since the time of Mahoma's era. Mahoma is the Japanese governor of the Philippines, basically. That was during Mahoma's age, yeah. During my research, I came across some sources, I guess, that say Mahoma was guilty of not having control of his army. Because I did read this book. It's a very curious book. It's called Philippine Nippon Tales. You could probably find it in your local library. Yeah, you could probably find it in your local library. There are very few prints of it now. You can see it in the UST library. But these are tales of stories of the Japanese army that were under his direct control. That he was able to control. There is one story that I remember very, very, very clearly. It was about this little girl who was going to church with her mom. Did I mention somewhere that I was gonna steal and digitize it? I wanted to steal it and digitize it. A girl that was going to the church, and on the way home from church, on the horse carriage, she did the bleh. She did the bleh. How do you say bleh? How do you say bleh in English? Bleh. Yeah. She stuck her tongue out at a Japanese sentry. Yeah. So her mom was freaking scared. Her mom was absolutely terrified. So what you're supposed to do when you pass by a Japanese sentry is you bow. You bow to the Japanese sentry, but she looked back at him and stuck her tongue out. And she said she was a very spoiled child because her parents refused to lecture her or to punish her or to hit her. So that's why she stuck her tongue out at the guy. And what happened was the sentry decided to halt the carriage, told both of them to get out, and made the girl kneel. But the sentry didn't hit the girl. Instead, the sentry gave the baton to the mom. And he told her to hit your own girl. And she said, she thought, she's not gonna hit me. She's my mom. And plus, my mom was never gonna hit me anyway. She's never hit me before. And to her surprise, her mom actually hit her really hard and left a scar. Well, not a scar. Left a mark on her butt. That's one of the very clear stories that I remember. Another one is this one's pretty simple, but there was a leader of a resistance group. There was a leader of a resistance group that met with the general of one of the Japanese armies because they wanted to establish peace. They wanted to reduce hostilities. So the leader of the Filipino rebels met with the Japanese army leaders, and they realized they were neighbors, and that the Japanese general used to be just some guy selling food. What do you call it? I think it was like azuki beans in the Philippines. They were like, "Yeah, what's up?" And they hugged. That was a much simpler story. The local bean seller. The whole book is actually full of wholesome stories. Wholesome or like seen in a positive light. I suggest like anyone curious about the Japanese era Philippines, check it out. It was a good read. Like in the province of Bulacan, there were a lot of Japanese soldiers, but that's where almost all the good stories come from. It has dark ones as well. Yeah, it does have some dark ones as well. There really was torture and dismemberment. There really was some of those stories. But after that, the Philippines would become part of the US again. For a bit. For a little tiny bit. The Philippine Independence Act, or the Tidings-McDuffie Act, would be forced upon the Philippine Commission and the Philippine revolutionaries, and it was kneecapped to allow for import quotas and American access to Philippine resources, equal access with the Philippine and American people. And especially the day was July 4th, July 4th. And they really were pulling out. But as an act of defiance, I guess, much later on, much later on, the date was moved from July 4th because, like, you don't want to be an American baby, like, celebrating your own Independence Day at the same day as America just because America gave you that fucking Independence Day. They moved it to June 12 when it was proclaimed, actually, by Emilio Aguinaldo. The United States would continue to monitor and control Philippine country, the country of the Philippines, through the CIA for many more presidents onward. But in a symbolic gesture, at least, President Rojas would say, "As we are masters of our own destiny, so too must we bear all the consequences of our actions." Any significance towards the 12th? It was the day that Aguinaldo declared Philippine independence. I would show you more, but unfortunately, circumstances do not allow me to talk about any time period further than this. I hope you understand. So, thank you very much for watching the lecture. Even though it's a sad ending, it's a somewhat sad ending. As someone else said, I'd rather this country run by Filipinos to the ground rather than foreigners. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and stay grounded, but stay hopeful. Now, allow me a few minutes to get some water, but we will have a tiny zatsudan before we finish. So. Whoa. Thank you very much for the super chat. Little Love Bug, thanks for the lecture and happy Independence Day. Thank you very much. So, that was my first lecture in a very long time. I hope you enjoyed it. It took me a long time to prepare. It took me quite a while to do. I was I was I was working for a couple weeks on this. It's been like what, 3 weeks? 3 weeks on this? Mm. Thank you, thank you. You're welcome, you're welcome. Thank you very much for the super chat, Jack Knight. Thank you for your lecture. You did great. Thank you very much. Mono, thank you very much for being a member for 5 months. Very interesting lecture. I enjoyed it a lot. Thanks, Terry. You're welcome. I miss this kind of content. Commendable. Very old account. Thanks for this lecture, Miss Terry. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. I apologize in the name of all my Spanish ancestors. Don't worry. I'm gonna recolonize Spain, revenge colonize with the with Jollibees. Thank you very much, Male Idol Trash, for being a member for 13 months. Yay, Philippine independence. If you made it this far, I want you to know that I'm already planning the next Idol Talk. And it might happen next month. Oh, what is Idol Talk? It's basically an interview series on creators. Idol Talk or Idol Talk? Both. So, with that, thank you very much for watching. As always, it's thanks to your support that I'm able to continue doing this full time. So if you'd like to donate and support, please check the link in the description below. Or if you'd like to see more of me, know more about me, get closer, see my thoughts on stuff, see my food, see my dogs, you can become a member. It's right beside the subscribe button, which you should press the subscribe button before you click join. Thank you very much for watching. Don't feel obligated to do so, but it would be very good. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for upgrading your membership. Faithful. Doomsday Dan. Thank you very much. And it's Tattoo.